Hey guys, if you have an interest in developing games, consider joining the WU Game Developers Club. We don't have any more meetings this semester, but we should be back this fall and we'll be meeting every week. It's a great, open, friendly environment. You don't have to have any prior development experience. Take it from me. When I joined, I had no game development experience, and now I've put out nearly 3 games. If you're interested, go to gamedevclub.org.wvu.edu to learn more. Hello and welcome to Game Talk Episode 7. I'm your host, Ahmed Mion. This week I'm joined by a new face, Tristan Snyder.
Hello, nice to meet you.
And podcast veteran, Michael Dumeyer.
I'm humbled to be called a veteran.
Right. This week we're going to start off talking about hype, specifically like expectation versus reality in the video game industry. I think the biggest recent example of this being a problem is No Man's Sky, the infamous No Man's Sky release, right? But video games being what they are, they're very subject to just the nature of game making and advertising. They're very subject to hype. And hype absolutely sells a game, but when the hype does not adequately depict what the game is like, then horrible things can happen. Studios can get destroyed. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there and kick off a discussion about hype.
I think bringing into our obligatory talk about Sonic, I think Sonic 06 was a victim of this. Like, I think they really hyped it up as this brand new Sonic game that's going to revolutionize the genre or whatever.
See,
and then it was a steaming pile of garbage.
More than Sonic 06, I think Sonic in general, like, the poor Sonic fans are so, like, brainwashed.
They really are.
Like, they get hyped over the newest game every time, and I feel like each time is just worse than the last, but I don't know. I used to be a Sonic fan, and I don't want to get on the bad side of any Sonic fans out there, but I feel like that's definitely an example of expectation versus reality. What were you going to say, Tristan?
Okay. My stance on hype is, like, especially, like, in a marketing sense, is that I feel a lot of times when we look at promotional materials as far as games, we look at the most exciting aspects of a game. For example, the Dead Space marketing campaign, which is completely awful, but every scene of gameplay shown in those promotional materials is like just the most exciting part of the game, like flying around in zero gravity. But it's not accurately depicting what you do the other 70% of the time in the game.
Right. It's kind of like a movie trailer, right? The movie trailer shows you some of the best the movie has to offer to entice you to buy a ticket to go see the movie. Games have to be the same way. They show you some of the most exciting gameplay sequences, maybe to entice you to buy the game. I remember when the Order 1886 was shown off. It's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. They showed off this crazy, awesome like blimp level, which was hands down the best part of the game. I bought it and played it. The rest of the game sucked. Like. Just that game as a whole is not very good at all. Looks beautiful, but is just very boring and not engaging. But they showed off that level, and it got a lot of people hyped. So, do you guys think that maybe that's sort of like deceptive in a way, or is it just part of the trade, like business trade?
I mean, look at No Man's Sky's marketing. Like, there's no dinosaurs in No Man's Sky. There's no lush worlds.
So No Man's Sky, I think, is the most extreme example of this, where there is now evidence that the creator straight up lied on stuff that would be in the game. When he was like asked point blank if X, Y, or Z would be in the game, and it just wasn't, and he vehemently insisted that it was. So that's certainly the most extreme example.
One thing that was wrong with No Man's Sky is that it was pretty much released as an early access game. Like, there's a lot that wasn't included when it was put on Xbox One or PS4 or even PC. But recently the Foundation update came out and a few more things have been added. But that was one of the problems, is that initially we were sold a finished game that is early access.
Right. And yeah, they're making good on their promise to update the game and add more to the game, but that does not hold up when what you initially promised for the game is not there, you know? So, yes, I do think for No Man's Sky in particular, there is a level of deception there that shouldn't be when you're marketing your game, when you're hyping up your game. I think one game that did it right, just being the Sony fanboy that I am, is Horizon Zero Dawn. Every time they showed gameplay that was completely representative of what you'd be doing most of the time in that game. And it was just so engaging and so exciting that it sold the game itself. And then when you picked up the game, they never showed off any of their big set piece moments or anything. So when you picked up the game, the bar was already at that level. So when you got to those exciting moments, you were like, wow, I did not know that this game had it in it to wow me like this. So other than No Man's Sky, what games can you guys think of off the top of your head that do hype well or poorly?
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh my goodness. All right. So I wasn't really following the marketing for Mass Effect Andromeda too well, but I don't think they were ever advertising it as like the end all be all Mass Effect, right? I think they sort of knew what they had, and they kind of that's why the marketing push for Mass Effect Andromeda wasn't as insane as, like Mass Effect 2 or 3.
A lot of EA games are very guilty of using kind of deceptive marketing. Look at Battlefront, like the first battle, not
Right, I know what you mean. Battlefront on PS4, Xbox One, PC, the one that came out recently.
Yeah, I mean, that was sold as a fully fledged game, but when it came out, there was, like 3 maps?
There
Right.
were actually, there's 5 maps.
And then after a $50 season pass and over a year later, now it's a pretty full-fledged multiplayer game.
But no one
The-
plays it.
The quality of the mechanics are another discussion, but like they added more to the game after it came out than was in the game to begin with, and that's kind of a problem, right?
I think that's a whole nother dragon we can talk about in another episode, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
About what you're sold versus, like, what you're told is going to be in the game. Yeah, that's
Right.
something. I mean,
DLC is definitely a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when hype is used properly, it's going to propel your product like immensely. But when it's used poorly, obviously, it can crash and burn what you have very quickly.
Like, I remember being very hyped for the launch of Fallout 4, and I wasn't that disappointed, honestly. Maybe like a month afterwards, when the hype died down, I was finally aware of the flaws.
So-
But before that, it was a great time.
It's an interesting balance they have to strike, right? Because like the quality of the game, if they capture that adequately with whatever they're hyping it with, even if it's not that hype, I think people will be more open to it because they were not lied to, right? They knew what to expect and they got what they expected, and then that was great. It's when they overpromise and don't deliver when there's a problem.
Yeah, I think going back to one of your earlier things was I can't think of too many marketing campaigns for games because a lot of them have just been dull or pre-rendered cutscenes and that didn't show off the game. Like there were, what game am I thinking of? I think a number of times, like when Battlefield 1's promotional material came
Right.
up, like there was a little bit of gameplay, but the majority of that was just pre-rendered cutscenes that they were just showing off.
So I think a lot of that has to do with the pedigree of the developer, right? So Battlefield is so huge. They know they don't need to show off gameplay to sell, right? They just need a trailer, a cool-looking trailer. That obviously doesn't go over that well with gamers because we know that gameplay is king. I mean, we don't want some CGI movie to tell us what game to buy, right? We want to know how it plays. And I would love to see developers kind of embracing that going forward. And especially those lesser-known games that are being released, regardless of how like big or small they are, if your name's new or if you're a new IP, you have to sort of show gameplay to prove yourself. Otherwise, no one's going to pay $60 for a pretty-looking animated movie, right?
Yeah. Despite what I say about that, I do buy the CG movies that often come out after games. The Resident Evil and the Final
Right.
Fantasy movies come to mind. But I mean, buying games based off of the hype. I would also, because Undertale and Stardew Valley.
Right.
Like they just came out of nowhere, but the thing was there was very little marketing up until their release. Like I only heard about Stardew Valley maybe a week or so afterwards, just because like a YouTuber I watched played it, and then that was my only that was all I had for marketing material was, oh hey, someone talked about it while they were playing it.
So a lot of these indie games, right? They kind of had a following during development, right? And then I feel like the marketing was word of mouth from people who followed it, but I don't follow that scene as closely. Michael, what were you?
Like Minecraft comes to mind for they paid zero for marketing. They haven't marketed it at all. And
Well,
yet
that's like
it's massive.
an extremely rare case, I think. I mean, the story of Minecraft is maybe like a once in a generation type story, right? It's just instantly became what I think it's like. It's in the top 5 best-selling games of all time at this point, and it's only going to grow. But yeah, that was a rare case where no hype, no marketing needed. It just sort of exploded on its own, which is very impressive.
And then Microsoft picked it up and has been, I guess they're holding on to it, aren't they? They're
Yeah, they are.
Kind of
It's-
continuing on.
Microsoft owns Minecraft.
I mean, Notch now has a giant mansion in Beverly Hills where
And he's miserable, so
yeah,
that
he
just goes to
hates
show.
himself, but that's just
You know.
Notch.
All right, so sort of getting back on topic, is there anything else you guys want to add to the discussion of hype?
It's a necessary evil, really. I mean, if you don't have hype, then no one's excited to play your game. No one goes buy it, so then you just can't make games anymore.
And Minecraft is the second best-selling game, right behind Tetris.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that high up. I think Tristan's summarized that pretty succinctly. We're going to cut this segment a little short because we actually have a special guest on. He's my good friend, Mohammed Yusuf, and he's a semi-pro Super Smash Bros. Melee player, and I kind of wanted him to talk about the game because it's sort of like the only game he plays, and it's his probably, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but I'd say it's probably his biggest passion in life. So let's bring him on the show. All right, Mohammed, welcome on the show.
Hello.
So I mentioned before you came on here, you only play Super Smash Bros. Melee, correct? Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, and it's like one of your biggest passions, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, you could say that.
Would you consider yourself like a semi-pro player?
I'd say, I mean, out of like the many levels, I'm kind of at the scrubby local semi-pro level, yeah.
So yeah, you're being modest, but even at that level, it requires more tech skill than the layman's willing to master, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about why Super Smash Bros. Melee, of all games? Why, over a 10-year-old game, that you've decided to make something you're pursuing?
That's a really interesting question.
Well, you know, I mean, I know it has a huge, vibrant community in the fighting community, right? So I
Yeah.
just wanted to know, like, what you get out of it. Like, is it the mechanics that excite you, or is it just the competition? Is it the competitive scene?
Well, I can tell you, when I first started playing it, I guess competitively, after many years of just messing around with friends, I was pretty interested in just trying to get like all the really technical stuff down. For example, there's the gratification of trying to like learn how to do wave shines, and after practicing it for say like a month, finally you do one, you're like, oh my god, that's awesome. And then after 2 months, you can do it consistently. So there's a long-term aspect to it, where you're trying to be perfect in your movement and all that sort of stuff. And then there's multiple long-term components that it's basically just about being good at something. I think that's where it comes down to.
Right. Just really quick, do you guys play... I mean, I'm sure you've played Super Smash Bros. Melee, but have you played Super Smash Bros. Melee? Like, at a high level?
That's a good question.
I mean, I've played it in like some local tournaments and done decently.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't played Melee, but I've played 4.
Right. So the reason we're talking about Melee is just because I'm sure you can explain it way better than me, but I'm just going to start it off. The level of technical depth in that game is just on another level.
Well, it's crazy. There's like new techniques I keep hearing about.
Yeah,
every week.
and keep in mind, this game's over a decade old, right? And it's still being played. One of the biggest fighting games, you know,
Yeah.
that's hosted at tournaments.
It's literally been out for 16 years now, and still nobody's actually perfect at it.
Right. So like on top of all the technical skill that you can master, like I've seen pros like inputting 6 to 7 inputs per second. Just like absurd levels of precision and speed. But on top of all of that is just the mind game, sort of like meta game, where you're just trying to read it's like 13-dimensional chess. You're trying to read like so many moves ahead. Like if he does X, I'll do Y, but if he does Z, I'll do this. So like tell us a little bit more about that sort of thing.
Yeah, the mind game sort of aspect. So yeah, that's another interesting thing. So when you're playing, I remember a long time ago I was reading a post on Smashboards about how to get better because I was super into that.
Right.
But basically, it was Wobbles who posted this sort of mini guide, and what he had posted was there are basically 2 main aspects on how you're supposed to get good, and the big 2 points that he was talking about was number 1, getting your tech skill down, basically being able to move around and do whatever you want on a stage. And the other way more important aspect of it was the mind games aspect, where you learn what basically after like years and years and years of playing other people, which is a giant thing, you have to play other people to learn mind games. You learn what people's normal habits are in the game. So let me think of an example real quick. I got a good one. So for example, if you're trying to edgeguard a Falco and he's on the ledge, 99% of the time a scrubby Falco is just going to do a ledge hop dare. And if you see that coming, if you know the player's not good, you can easily just wait it out. They're going to do it, and you literally just stand a little farther away, and you can do anything. You can F-smash them. You can do whatever you want. That's just one example. So that's a mind games aspect of it where, what I just said is the very first level. And then as you go up and up and up and people get really good, then those layers start happening where, okay, the Falco knows you're going to wait, and he has to think, okay, I'm not going to do a dare, I'm going to do a illusion on stage. He won't expect that. And then you have to adapt to that, and it just kind of layers and layers and layers.
I just want to quickly interrupt and say that most people probably don't know what a dare or ledge hop is.
Not sure what an illusion is,
yeah,
actually.
No, but like
sorry.
for those that have played Melee, it has its own sort of language, like so many technical terms associated with like high-level play, right?
Yeah.
So why Super Smash Bros. Melee over other Smash games? There have been 4 games out now, right? Mm-hmm. Melee is the second iteration of the franchise. Yeah. What makes it so much better and more technically profound than the other games?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So I guess I'll just go through it. N64, it's kind of fun, but it gets to a point where all you're just trying to do is just combo people, and it's just not really, I don't know. I just never really gave that one a shot, I guess. Brawl's just where it's like basically 100% mind games, and it's just not the funnest thing.
So Brawl is like no technical skill, but the mind games are still there.
I wouldn't say no technical skill. I never really tried to be like super amazing at Brawl, but when it comes down to it, whenever you're trying to play Brawl on a competitive level, it just becomes really lame, and you just kind of... Everyone's just kind of just staying away from each other and trying to like tack on damage, and it gets really boring.
Because those combos aren't there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's because it's all mind games and no combos. Melee is, in my opinion, a good balance between the combos and the mind games. And interestingly, with Smash 4, when it first came out, I thought it was pretty garbage. But I think I've kind of changed my mind about it simply because I thought it was garbage because I thought it was like an in-between between Brawl and Melee where there were mind games for sure and there were combos for sure, but the combos weren't really cool, you know? But I think that's changing, especially now because, I've just been watching it a little bit here and there, and I can kind of see where you can get, pseudo combos, for example, like tricking the opponent, and you can build up combos and combos and combos like that. So, I don't know why I didn't really give Smash 4 as much of a chance. Just Melee's just...
There's too much there in Melee, right?
Yeah, it's too awesome.
Right. So how about talk about your favorite characters to play as in Melee and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I typically tend to play basically all the top tier characters, and if you don't know what that is, basically there's like 26 characters, I think, and some characters are better than others, and I enjoy playing all the good characters. So, for example, that's
So sorry to interrupt, but some characters are better than others, like objectively, right?
Yes.
So like, the skill ceiling for some characters is simply much higher than other characters.
yeah, exactly.
Like for example, I've dabbled a little bit, like seeing professional or like competitive Smash. So I've noticed that my favorite character in Melee is Pichu, and everyone believes that it is hot garbage, which I can agree to some level. But like higher tier characters would be something like Falco or Captain Falcon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Jigglypuff is also top tier in Melee.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Isn't that the opposite in Smash 4?
Yeah, Smash 4
I think so.
Jigglypuff is literally bottom tier.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you can't do anything with Jigglypuff unless you're a wizard.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that the whole ranking thing's a whole separate story, but I just enjoy playing like, Fox, Falco, I mean just basically all of them. Fox, Falco, Jigglypuff, Peach, Sheik.
And they
You
all
guys
have
claim-
radically different play styles.
Yeah, they're
too,
all pretty
correct?
different. Yeah.
I thought Fox and Falco were pretty similar in the way they played.
That's what a novice would say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
that's what
they are in 4, but
No, not so much in Melee. They look really similar. They both got the same looking shine. They both got the same looking nair. There's a bunch of stuff that makes it look the same, but they're actually really, really different characters. Falco's a lot about control, basically just controlling the other opponent. That's what you can do with Falco. That's why people say he's perhaps even one of the best characters in the entire game. Whereas Fox, he has such a
Technical.
yeah, he has such a high ceiling in the way he's able to move, and it's not so much about controlling the opponent as it is how dominating you yourself can be. Yeah, that's yeah,
So Fox is the ultimate offensive player.
and defensive.
Right. So there's this joke that goes around in the community called 20XX, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is, I don't know if you guys have heard of it,
No.
but the idea is that Fox's skill ceiling is so high. As people get better and better at the game, they're only going to play as Fox.
Yeah. I think that's been a little twisted nowadays. Some people say that's so. The original person who said this was this super technical guy. His name was Hax, or Aziz Al Yami, and now people are saying, okay, it doesn't technically have to be Fox. The idea of 20XX is everyone just plays so perfectly that the entire game doesn't even matter. Like you get touched, you die. So then the whole game moves on to another level where you're just playing like rock paper scissors to get port matter on the GameCube because for some reason port has some sort of advantage in the game.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. So then it evolves to like a meta Melee level where it doesn't even matter about the game because everyone's so good and you're just doing rock paper scissors to do like
So
port.
I know it's sort of been mentioned, but it's very remarkable that you said the game's been out for 16 years and people are still getting better at it. So
Yes.
like the absolute peak skill ceiling has not been reached yet, which really speaks to the technical depths of the game.
Yeah. The biggest example I'd say is right now. Actually, it happened this weekend, which was at the tournament DreamHack Austin, where you have Chudat, who's been he's been playing since day one. Ice Climbers, and he was like the story of him is he's just always been second to everybody. Second to Ken is probably the biggest example, and until now he's kind of just been not really caring. He's been a top 50 player, I'd say, but this tournament he actually got second despite every god being there except
That's
for
crazy.
Yeah, despite every god being there except.
So we'll get
yeah,
into
Monica,
let's get into the professional community in a minute.
Okay.
Michael, did you want to say something?
What is your thoughts about the common meme among the community? Only Fox, Final Destination, no items.
I think it's funny. Yeah, that's a.
It's funny but true.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
pretty much the competitive scene in a nutshell.
That's not true.
Right. So no,
Throw an
actually,
outsider.
that segues really well to. Let's just talk about the competitive scene for a while too. So like, I'm a complete outsider. Well, I wouldn't say complete outsider, but I don't want to say I follow competitive Smash, but if it's on, I'll watch it and be extremely entertained by it. There's this whole these whole storylines of glory and revenge and like these top players that are just sort of untouchable. These top 5, kind of 6 now, they're sort of untouchable by anyone else. And now the skill ceiling's sort of like leveling out where everyone's getting to the same level, and it makes for some very exciting matches. Why don't you talk a little bit about the professional play and the players themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great topic. So I'd say Melee is, at least until I'd say last year, it was a really, really interesting game to just watch, because the way the professionals have been set up, the way the history of Melee has been is such that it basically looks like an anime. That's the little joke that goes on. You got Mango, like the hero, and H-Box, like Mango's little villain guy or
Just
whatever.
a little side note.
I
Is
can
that
tell-
why when two characters smash each other off the sides of the opposite sides of the ring, the announcers call it DBZ?
Yeah, yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like Goku and Vegeta like, hitting each other so hard they fly off in different directions.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah. I guess to give a little background about the players, we got Armada #1. He's from Sweden, Gothenburg, something like that. Gothenburg, Sweden. He's been #1 for a long time. He's just crazy. He plays Peach Fox. You got Hungry Box, who's actually has a chemical. Who actually has an engineering degree. He plays Jigglypuff. He causes a lot of drama in the community. You got Mewtwo King, which he's probably the first person any outsider would hear about. He's this pretty crazy guy. He's got some spectrum disorder, I'd say, maybe autistic. I don't really know, but he's crazy. He plays a pretty beautiful Marth, Sheik, Fox. From New Jersey. Who else is there? There's Mango. Mango, fan favorite. He's from Norwalk, California. He's got the Mango Nation behind him.
He definitely gets the crowd more hype than
Yeah, he's a
everyone
crowd
else.
pleaser. 100% crowd pleaser.
Just a quick question about these people. These are like the top people in the community, right? Like if you
Absolutely.
joined the Smash community, you'd like instantly know about these people. Like
100%.
so, if someone was like just getting in, these would be like the LeBron James or
Yeah,
like
100%, yeah.
yeah, wow, the Tom Brady of
Yeah,
Melee.
like Mewtwo King would be like the Kobe Bryant. Yeah.
And I just want to say, it can't be understated how freakishly good these players actually are. It's like you're watching a different game when you see two of these people fight.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Like I could sit on my couch and play Melee, but watching them play Melee, I don't know if I could ever I'm sure with years and years and years, but these guys, they are just a whole nother class of player.
Yeah, it's to the point where if you flinch, then you literally die.
If you make like let's say a 0.1 second mistake,
Yes.
it's way too costly. That could
Yeah.
cost you like an entire
No,
tournament.
it literally costs lives now. It's absolutely nuts. Anyways, as I was saying, basically until this past year, it's been this kind of anime style story where you have these 5 gods trying to vie for a throne, kind of like Game of Thrones, I'd say. And the story of it has been, okay, Armada's taken that throne. He's #1. He's been #1 for, I think, 3 years straight now. Now it's gotten to a point where it's not just the top 5 anymore. Now I'd say it's about the top 15, who are all pretty much on a same playing level, with the exception of Armada, of course. And so this is why, like, at the last tournament, DreamHack Austin, you see someone, Chudat, who, until I'd say not even a month ago, people didn't even consider him to be top 20, and he got second. So in that aspect now it's definitely the era where you have way more upsets that are possible, and that makes the game way more interesting to watch than it is to see same old Golden State Warriors winning again and again and again. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me that Nintendo did not set out to make a competitive game. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they sort of accidentally made one of the most competitive games of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, if you have any sort of cursory interest in Super Smash Bros., I really recommend watching one of these tournaments. seeing some of these professional players play on Twitch, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, the excitement is palpable. Like, it's so engaging and it's so entrancing. Like, you can't look away. And if you look away for a second, you could have missed like 30 different button inputs that happen. That's just the level it's at, and it's so exciting.
Yeah. I remember at college I was watching, I think it was Apex 2015. It was PPMD, who I actually forgot to mention. He's a super guru. He's actually one of the top 5. That's all you really need to know about him. He came back after not playing for like a year, and I was the only one who was interested in Melee, but literally all my apartment mates were watching that tournament and were getting super hyped.
Yeah, and he won that tournament, right?
He sure did.
After not playing for a year,
Yeah,
which is just
it was so nuts. It was
disgusting.
That's the best tournament ever.
All right. Any concluding thoughts on Melee?
Just a quick
Everyone?
question, I guess. So what would you describe as like a typical practice for like going into tournament play? What do you have to prepare? How would you do that?
Typical practice probably is what most people do is they just practice tech skill, which I honestly think is retarded. Yeah, it's so stupid. People just end up doing routine stuff, which literally every player in the competitive world has seen millions of times. So if I'd say anyone's trying to get into competitive play, do not practice tech skill. That'll come no matter what. You should just practice mind games. Literally watching YouTube videos. Everyone says it. Watch YouTube videos of other people playing and see what they're doing wrong. See how you get hit. That's actually what you should. No one does it. I know for a fact. People just practice tech skill. No one actually looks at YouTube videos. If you want to get good, actually look at YouTube videos.
So yeah, these pros actually put up analysis videos, like sometimes over
Yeah.
an hour long, of some of their matches, just
Yes.
dissecting every single move, every decision that was made.
Yeah,
And
that's what you
I
need to
think
do.
that's probably the most educational thing you could do for yourself. If you
that
wanna get good
teaches
at
you
that game.
mind games, and then you learn the mind games and you practice it. That's how you get better.
Right. Do you have anything else to say about Melee?
Not really. Melee's awesome.
I second that. All right. So for our last topic, we're just sort of kind of going to go off what we were talking about before and just broaden it and just talk about eSports in general. You kind of got a taste of that in the last segment with the talk of Pro Super Smash Bros. Melee, but I know that eSports is so much bigger than that. Michael and Tristan are more into the eSports scene than I am, so I kind of want them to take the reins for this topic.
Yeah, sure.
What sort of esports do you follow, and do you participate in any?
Well, I follow both the Overwatch and the Dota esports currently,
Right.
and I participated in both. Never won a game, but that's a whole other story. But the thing about esports is that it's just like a regular sporting event. You have your heroes, your villains, your team that you root for.
Right.
Millions of people come in there, probably get drunk while watching them. It's really a thing.
Right, and I saw that you can even watch a lot of these esports on ESPN now, right?
I think Blizzard has an agreement with Heroes of the Dorm with ESPN. I know TBS also plays CSGO now
Nice.
because they own a tournament or two.
I think I want to bring up how esports are actually different from typical sports, because typical sports, the game doesn't change drastically from every season, but every time like we talk about esports, it could be a completely different game. Like we could talk Overwatch is, well, there's an esport community, but then we could also talk about StarCraft was huge for a while. They're drastically different games. So
The games are drastically different, and the sort of storylines that emerge in those games are different from season to season too. I know. So I have cursory knowledge of League of Legends because my cousin was is super into professional League of Legends and actually played at a semi-pro level for a long time.
the rewards on those tournaments are huge.
Yeah, they're millions of dollars. They're very high stakes. But like, I remember I used to like just talk to him, and every year I hear like of these different teams like being in the top, sort of bracket. And I was just like, huh. It's interesting how like as the games get patched and as strategies change, some teams come to the forefront while others fall away. That being said, I think League of Legends fans are going to kill me, but there's some Korean team I want to say out there that's always number one. So barring that, SK Telecom? I don't know. I'm
Something like that.
not going to...
I mean,
stop talking.
Like the largest single tournament prize pool, I think right now is actually the Dota 2's International, which is hosted every year in Seattle, a key arena in like August-ish,
Right. So
and it was 20 billion last year.
What?
Oh, it's 20 million, not 20 billion.
it was not
20.7 million, not billion. I
Okay,
wish
yeah,
it
I
was
was gonna say.
billion, but
So actually, let's jump on that. Why don't you tell us a bit about Dota? Because I know it's similar to League, but
So Dota started out as a mod for Warcraft 3, which was like this RTS game. But what made Warcraft 3 different at the time was like you had these special units called heroes. And someone took a mod of that, so you only played as the hero and effectively started like MOBAs, I think. Like Dota
Right.
came out and then Dota 2 followed, and that's what's kind of the competitive one, isn't it, right now?
both were very competitive. Dota 2 was what started the international and the big prize pool era of Dota. Before that, it was just these little tournaments, much like Smash has a lot of, like these little tournaments that like they're a couple $1,000 prize pools,
right.
and not a lot of people watch them. But then Valve was like, we're gonna make our own tournament and we're gonna bring this up to $1 million prize pool for their first iteration, and it's just blown up from there.
Right. I mean, it's growing every year, and it seems like new games become big esports titles every year. Like Overwatch came out last year, right?
Yeah.
And it's already one of the most talked about esports titles.
I think there's a little bit of a debate going on right now whether or not it can keep up being an esport, like whether or not it'll continue being in the forefront of esports, because in a lot of ways, like Team Fortress 2 has it's similar to, Team Fortress 2 has some similarities with Overwatch, and I know lots of people play it, but I don't know. I don't think Team Fortress 2 is an esport, right?
Team Fortress 2 does have a little bit of an esport community, mostly in their 6v6s, but their 6v6s, the meta hasn't changed, which the meta is like what people play, what's generally acceptable to play, hasn't changed since 6v6s started. Like with Overwatch, they're constantly patching the game, they're constantly changing what character to play as, what characters do the best, they're constantly swapping. That's what keeps an esport alive.
Yeah.
Like if someone's, like Riot stops suddenly patching League of Legends, the game would die within a month or two. Because people
No,
get bored.
absolutely. It has to constantly be tweaked, balanced, and updated, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, as far as getting into esports, even I think there's a little bit higher level of it because someone I was watching talked about, I think it was probably Extra Credits or something, but they talked about how when you look at the sports we have now, basketball, football, what it takes for a person to get into those sports is having like a football or a basketball, whereas like getting into esports
And lots of athletic skill.
lots of athletic skill. Yeah, that cannot be understated. But I mean, even in esports too, you need athletic skill. But like, there's a bit more of like a price ceiling on getting into esports because you have to afford like all your equipment.
Like high-end computers and that sort of thing, yeah.
Like the skill level between there's a tremendous amount of skill in esports. Like the skill level between say me, where I'm like middle of ground like Overwatch, and a pro, is a matter of maybe hundreds of hours of gameplay and practice.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a trend with like a lot of like the jump between average and pro, right? Like we talked about with Melee. It's just these pros. I mean, they're called pros for a reason. They've put in like the blood, sweat, and tears to get that skill.
I think the number's probably thousands and thousands of extra hours.
Right.
Yeah, like I was reading when I was doing a paper for my English class a couple semesters ago. I did it on esports, and I was looking up how long they practice. Like the average Dota 2 team, they practice 40 to 60 hours a week.
Yeah, that's a full-time job.
Like
Yeah.
10 or so, like 4 to 6 hours a day, every day of just game.
So I just kind of wanted to break it down like this. So it seems to me, from like an outsider's perspective, there are three major branches of esports, and those are like the first-person shooters, like Call of Duty and Overwatch, the MOBAs, like Dota and League of Legends, and then the fighting titles, like Street Fighter.
You also have your RTSs. There's a couple. StarCraft is still popular. Brood War is still popular in Korea, even though the pros moved on to StarCraft 2 because that's where all the money is. And StarCraft, the thing with StarCraft 2, the reason why it's dying is because Blizzard doesn't like to make that big changes to it, and that's what's causing it to stagnate because there's not a lot of deep mechanics in there.
I also feel like RTSs wouldn't translate well to like an audience, right? Because it's not as like action-y.
No, I watched some StarCraft 2. It's pretty intense because Like your average RTS player, they take half an hour to finish a game. That's like a MOBA game now. That's what a MOBA is right now. It's like half an hour to an hour of pure action. An RTS game is like 10 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like longest usually.
I did not know that.
Like they're really hyper aggressive and they don't sit around and build their base up. They get their units, they go, they charge, they fight their armies, and then it's over.
Interesting.
Like I've never seen a base destroyed in a StarCraft game because the other person usually realizes it's over and just GG's out and quits. Because they can't survive after having their army annihilated 10 minutes in.
It's like in chess when you know you're going to get checkmated in 5 turns or whatever, and you can't do anything about it, right? So you might as well just
Yeah, you might as well make it
knock the
painless.
king over then. Yeah.
Unless you want to be, well, I can't think of the proper word to say. Unless you want to be rude, you're gonna GG out and not sit there and waste the guy's time.
Right.
It reminds me of my Halo days. Playing teams, you're down 13 and they're about to win.
Yeah, but that was not professional Halo.
Yeah,
That was just
still.
like playing in middle school.
I don't think Smash has that problem where you know you've lost.
Oh no, dude! Smash is an entirely different beast. I've seen the most
Yeah.
epic of comebacks. You know, it's
Yeah.
never over till it's over. In
I
Smash.
mean, MOBAs have that same issue, but the thing about RTSs is that once you reach a certain point, once your army gets eliminated, it's over.
right?
Like you lose 200 some units at once, it's over. You can't possibly rebuild while they still have 150 units coming at your base. So you're going to lose. There's no way of coming back from that unless you're a freaking wizard.
Right.
Yeah, so you were saying how all these esports have to constantly change to stay
Right.
popular, right? Which does make sense. Adds, uniqueness to the game. It's interesting
I know
that.
what you're going to say. Yeah.
I just want to say it's interesting that Melee has never changed. It's basically
right.
impossible to change.
It came out once and it's been out and it hasn't been altered since, which is pretty
Yeah.
remarkable.
I mean, Melee has a lot of mechanical depth. It's either you put a lot of mechanical depth and thought into it or have a lot of glitches that people can exploit to do these cool things, or you kind of have to completely change the game because Melee has been alive this long because people are still discovering new things to do. And that's the thing with older games where these glitches that couldn't be patched out are still there and people keep finding them, like speedrunners, for example. They find these glitches that allow them to skip to the final boss about 7 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I was watching a speedrun recently, like the Ocarina of Time world, the world record, I guess. It was in a completely different language.
You can skip to the end, right? There's a way you can skip to the end.
It's like 19 minutes long. He skipped all the way to the final Ganon with just the stick, and he was still youngling, and he won.
That's funny.
Yeah, because you can just get to the first boss and then jump through a wall and you're at the final boss.
Yeah, Melee has its, I guess you can, I don't know if you'd call them glitches, but, I mean, you got a technique called wobbling where you can literally just you grab someone and almost kill them with ices. Well, basically, if you grab them, you can kill them. with
Because you have to
ice
desync
climbers.
them. Like, I know
Right.
a good bit of Smash. You
Yeah.
desync them and then you have control of 2 characters versus 1 now.
Yeah.
Because they're
That's-
acting independently.
I mean, you could arguably call that not really a glitch, but it's pretty darn cheap. You still
mean, it
gotta
was-
live with
it-
it,
I mean, was it intentionally programmed into the game?
probably.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Then it wasn't a glitch. That's cool.
It's not. I'll tell you this. It's definitely not something they thought of.
I think wave dashing was a glitch, isn't it?
I heard that. I don't believe it.
I don't know. I'm iffy about it.
I think
With
the
how
creators-
mysterious Nintendo is, we'll never know.
I think the creators of Melee had a lot of stuff that they put in there, but didn't really know what could be done with it. That's what I think. I think wobbling was never thought of when they were making Melee. I don't think wave dashing was ever thought of. I think they were just thinking about air dodging, honestly, when they were making Melee.
And they didn't expect it to be turned into like sliding across the
Yeah,
ground
yeah,
at Mach
yeah.
3.
I don't think a lot of the stuff that is in Melee was actually
It was unintended.
Yeah, a lot of it's unintended.
Right. So to sort of sum up the talk about esports, they're only getting bigger year after year. More games are becoming popular esports games, and it's kind of exciting to see how big it's going to get, and if it'll ever reach kind of like the level traditional sports are at.
Can't wait to see my Saturday night League of Legends tournament.
I mean
that's
they've
coming.
already surpassed like the NBA Finals. Like League of Legends, the World Championships surpassed viewership over the NBA Finals.
That's insane to me, and I almost don't believe it until I see the numbers.
I can't because these
Yeah.
numbers are a little bit old, but
I
it did
don't
surpass the
believe
NBA
it.
Finals for that year.
Oh my.
That's
Like-
incredible. Right. So as always, we end every show with just sort of going around talking about what games we've been playing or recommend to others. Tristan, let's start with you.
Alrighty. I've been playing No Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch.
That's an excellent game.
I love that
Yeah.
game. It combines probably my three favorite things. It is a JRPG. The animation is done by Studio Ghibli, who I love, and it's developed by Level 5, which for the life of me I cannot think of a game they have made this far that I disliked. It's just a heartwarming story, and I'm not done. Like, I am probably nowhere close to the end of that game, but I'm excited to just go home and play more.
Right. So it infuses like a turn-based JRPG with sort of Pokemon, right?
Yeah, a little bit. So you can move around freely inside of all the battles, but you also have the ability to take control of your essentially Pokemon-like monster in the battle.
So it's layered because it has that Pokemon-like monster that can evolve and fight and all that. In addition to that, in battle, you control your party members as well, correct?
Yes, you don't control all of them at the same time. That would be chaotic.
Right,
but you control your character, and you can switch over to any of your other characters. Or I'm not sure. I haven't been playing it recently because college. But I'm pretty sure you can switch into your other party members' monsters.
Right. And I don't know if you said it partially because I'm brain dead from finals, but I just want to say that the most impressive thing about this game is the art.
Oh my god, it's beautiful.
The graphics, it's like the entire movie is like a Ghibli movie, a Studio Ghibli movie. It's just the fact that they were able to get that rich anime, like cartoon graphical style and have it move so well. It just looks like the entire time you're playing, it looks like you're watching a Studio Ghibli movie. And I've never seen a game with that sort of graphical style before. And it's that alone is worth picking up the game.
I mean, it's
in
a few
addition to
years
the
old,
fact,
so.
in addition to the fact that it's got an incredible story,
Yeah.
and it's got very, very good gameplay as well.
I'm super stoked for the second one.
Absolutely,
Whenever
yeah.
that comes out.
Soon, I think.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, you really could take any of the cutscenes from that game and drop them in a Ghibli movie, and it wouldn't look out of place.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, what about you?
I was still thinking of a game, but I'm trying to think of what I've been playing recently that's not Overwatch or Dwarf Fortress.
What about just something you would recommend playing? Something
Recommend
you've
playing?
played before?
PlanetSide 2. Would
Okay.
recommend checking that out. It's both on PS4 and PC. Really great shooter that's kind of unique in the fact that there's 300, 400 person battles.
No
And-
way.
Yeah, really. It's massive.
On PS4?
Yeah. It's a massive game. Like, there's 3 or 4 continents, and you can have up to 100 to 200 people in a single battle on each side. Because each continent has like 300 to 400 people per faction, and there's 3
So
factions.
wait, are you saying so it's a first-person shooter as well?
Yeah. It's completely massive, and
Wow.
it's great.
Okay.
It's an actually older game. PS4 release was supposed to be at launch, but then they were optimizing it. It still gets great frames on PS4. And like the game's been out since 2012.
So what's the sort of like flavor behind it? Is it sci-fi?
It's
or?
sci-fi.
Okay.
It had its original came out, PlanetSide 1. Really, really roped on the big battles, but had a lot of server issues because this was back during the time of dial-up modems.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't handle 200, 300 people at the time. So the game would run like garbage. Then PlanetSide 2 comes out, and it's a beautiful game. There's so much you can do. You can be in a tank, you can be in a fighter jet, you can have a jetpack. And there's just such a vibrant community that still plays it, even though it's released in 2012 and it's a free-to-play game.
Wow.
That, like, you still had these 100, 200 people battles.
So are all these people on the map at once, or are you fighing in like factions?
There's 3 factions, and they're all on the map at once. Like, you could
That's
run into a
crazy to me.
200-person
Okay.
battle if all's going right.
That's mind blowing to me because I didn't think we had the sort of like network architecture to support that sort of thing yet. But
Leave it to Sony Online now they're Daybreak, but
wow, okay,
figure that out.
sounds very cool. Mohammed, I think we're going to skip over you because you pretty much just play melee. But
What?
I mean, if there's
another
something you
game?
want to say, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'd like to put in a little elevator pitch.
Sure.
All right. I think most games Like 99% of games are just there as rely on a reward system, you know. If I was smart, I'd be able to code something from medical school, but they all basically, you get to the next level, you beat your opponent, whatever it may be. For me, Melee helps keep a healthy confidence in me. So, I mean, right now I'm a first-year medical student at West Virginia University School of Medicine, and it's really easy to come back from an exam day and just feel like crap. You studied 100-plus hours for one exam, and you didn't do well, and you feel bad. What do? Well, there's a lot of healthy things to do. You can go out, run, or whatever. But you can also play Melee. And what I mean by that is you pick up your GameCube, you go out with some friends, and you knock the bejeebers out of your friends. And what do you feel like? Oh, you feel like you're successful at something. You don't feel like I failed that exam. You feel like, oh, I'm capable of doing amazing things, and whatever it may be. So for me, Melee is a way to be healthfully confident, and it's just one of many ways to improve your life, I think, as long as you don't go way too far with it.
Oh, that was very well said.
Yeah, that's my elevator pitch. Play Melee.
I'm just going to end very briefly by giving a shout out to Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Is that what you've been playing recently, or?
No, I haven't touched it in months, but I had to think of something. But no, it's one of the most incredible Pokemon games in recent years, and actually I think it's my favorite aside from Red and Blue. It completely shakes up like the Pokemon formula we know and love, to the extent that there are no gyms in the game, and the game sort of revolves around you forming the Elite Four before you conquer them, and just the Pokemon designs themselves are pretty inspired this time around, and it's a lot of fun to play, especially for longtime fans of the series that kind of want a fresh coat on Pokemon. So if you haven't checked that out, give it a shot. All right, everyone, I think that's going to do it for this week. I'm Ahmed Mian. Thank you, Tristan, Michael, and our guest, Mohammed, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
What's your feeling about the awkward seal dog?
What?
Oh, Poplio?
Yeah, Poplio.
I hate Poplio. Poplio sucks.
You're an animal.
Yeah, you have to pick either
Litleo or Rowlet?
either Litleo or Rowlet. Probably Rowlet. But,
I'm on Team Seal Dog.
But never Poplio. Never
Clown
Poplio.
Seal.
All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Talking about Sonic again. Shadow the Hedgehog was a very underrated game. Sonic 06, game of the year. Great game. 10 out of 10.
You want to go on the record with that one? You want to
This-
put down that Sonic
Yeah,
06
let's
was
go on the record. I
Sonic
just peeked the
experience?
mic again. Emity's going to edit this all out, so it doesn't really matter. I peeked the mic again. I need to stop. Look at the peaks.